and welcome back. Today we're just doing a short video about how to make a lizard sculpture. So what you will need is a template, a pin tool. I have here a wooden barbecue skewer and a little bit of clay, and then a rolling pin. And for my rolling pin, I have these. So first you need to take your clay and wedge it on your surface. The work surface that I'm using today is a folding table with a piece of canvas laid out over it. And I'm just carefully wedging my clay to make sure there aren't any air bubbles. And then I'm going to take my rolling pin. And before I start rolling, actually, I'm going to use the heel of my hand to press firmly the clay so that it is already kind of flat. And then once the clay is already mostly flat, I'm going to take my rolling pin and just even it out. And you want your clay to be about 1/4 of an inch thick when you're done rolling. And you just need enough clay for your template to evenly fit on. So the reason I'm picking my clay up and kind of moving it around and flipping it over is because I don't want it to get stuck to the surface, because then it will be very difficult to pick up the sculpture when I'm done. So this is about the thickness I want. It's pretty even. So I'm just going to lay it flat, take my template, and that is plenty of space for my template. And then I'm going to use my pin tool to trace the perimeter of my template before I actually cut through the clay, just to make sure everything lines up. And so I'm just taking a moment here to trace the entire perimeter of my lizard template. Once you kind of have a feel for how much space you're going to need, how much pressure you're going to need to cut all the way through the clay with your pin tool, you can go ahead and start doing that. It's just a very soft and gentle amount of pressure. It's nice to know what amount of pressure will actually cause a mark to appear on the surface rather than actually cutting it all the way through, because that will help you later on when you begin to use scoring and slipping techniques. And the clay is pretty soft, so a lot of pressure goes a long way. You don't need that much pressure to cut through the surface. And then the outer edge of the clay can pretty much just lift right up. I like to make a few cuts in the clay surface at different points, so if it's not cut all the way through on the entire perimeter, it doesn't necessarily tear. Okay. And then I just got a couple of spots that I need to free up. Be extra careful when you're going around the lizard's arms and toes, because it's a little bit more of a precise cut. And then you should be able to lift away your template and have your outline. It's just a lot like cutting paper. It's kind of easier to go and make like bigger sectional cuts first and then leave the detail cuts for later. And here we go. I have my lizard outlet or outline. You can also use a texture tool to kind of add detail to the lizard. It's also a good idea to take the time to remove these little extra sort of like crumbly pieces of clay from your lizard template. So I'm just dipping my finger. I have a bucket of water right here. I'm just dipping my finger in the bucket of water to smooth each of the edges of my lizard to make it nice and even. Once you have all of your edges nice and even, you can go ahead and flip your lizard over and do the same thing on the other side. And then before you start to make the lizard sort of shape, make sure you write your name on one side of the clay. So you just take your pen tool and write your name in the clay and your last initial. And if you want, you can also add the date or the year. So I have that written on what is going to be the underside of my lizard. I'm going to pick him up and make him look as though he is standing. So you can use your rolling pin to help prop him up. Or you can just kind of work with the clay if it's firm enough, if you let it sit for a little bit to give it sort of the appearance of movement. But I'm just going to take my rolling pin and just kind of prop him up on the rolling pin. You can also use your pin tool to create eyes. So I have the flat round end rather than the pointy end, and I'm just going to use it to make a couple of little depressions for where the eyes should be. And there you have it. It's a super simple project. This is meant to be sort of a very preliminary first ceramics project for anyone that may not have had clay experience. It's very easy, and it's a really fun little sculpture. So here's my little lizard. I'm going to set him here to dry, and he'll be fired shortly. All right, have fun.